Let's explore the Pose tool in 3D Coat's Sculpt workspace. It not only allows you to pose a character, but also it's an advanced transform tool that you can use as a Swiss Army knife for modeling in this environment. I should also mention while I'm at it, if you find the modeling in this environment is not what you need, you can always step into the Retopo workspace and use tools here such as the primitives. You have the models here that you can bring in. You can manipulate them using transform tools. You have extrusion tools, many different ways of manipulating a model using polygonal modeling tools in this environment. And then if you want to bring a copy of that into this workspace, then you can go to the geometry menu and check Retopo mesh to sculpt mesh. That's probably the fastest way to get it in here. You could also go to the object section under import and choose pick from Retopo. I mention that because, again, it is kind of a Swiss Army knife for modeling, but there are times where you may find that you can't quite get the control that you might normally find in poly modeling tools, so you have both at your disposal. Okay, so in the tool options panel, at the very top here, you'll notice you have the Transpose Mode and a drop list menu to select different types here. The Paint Select option is the only one where you would want to use Shape Draw modes in order to make a selection. Obviously, you can use a brush as well. These other modes, you need to use a Brush Draw mode, and you'll see why in just a moment. Select Object, obviously you're just basically picking, so you just click. Let's stick with Line mode. I'm going to go to an orthographic view. By clicking on the cube icon, you can toggle back and forth into perspective and orthographic view by clicking this or the 5 key on your number pad. In the camera list menu, also want to go to a side view, and with line selection method chosen, I'll left mouse click and drag. The first point sets the starting point. As you're dragging, the second point initiates the direction of the selection. And it also defines just how broad the gradient is in between. So once I release, it creates a gradient between those 2 points. Your edit post fall off will allow you to make a more narrow gradient or a more widened gradient. So for example, if I change that up here, I clear the selection and I do that one more time. You can see how much wider that gradient is. You have the standard transform gizmo. Another new addition that has been added to this gizmo is this transform along 2-axis scale widget. It's somewhat hidden until you hover over it, then it's highlighted, just as any widget will be highlighted as you hover over it. This outer ring allows you to rotate basically in screen space. This one allows you to simply move in screen space. When you are working with the gizmo, there is a way to reposition and orient the gizmo the way you want before you make the transform. You do that by checking Move Only Gizmo, but a better way of going about it is to hold the Shift key down, then you can make the adjustment on the fly. When you're done, just release the Shift key and go ahead and make your transform. So let's go ahead and try and rotate here. Now it's selecting the back part of the thigh, and I really do not want that. So I'm going to undo. And I'm going to clear the selection. Alternatively, you can hit Control D, which is a universal deselection keyboard combination throughout 3D Coat, just as it does in Photoshop. So it's easy to remember. So I'll hit Control D to deselect. Okay. And I'll make that selection again. I'll clear that. I want to choose the default profile and tweak it just a bit. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and rotate. You'll notice it only moved one side, so I'll undo. Clear the selection. I'll hit my S key to bring up the symmetry panel. Enable that. Make the selection again. want to elongate this a little bit, and I'll clear the selection. This time, here I want to rotate the ankle. If I want, I can smooth the selection. Now let's go to a front view. We will change our selection type to ring, and I'll clear the selection. A ring will do as the name implies. It's going to create a selection confined between the 2 points. Again, I can smooth the selection. At any point in time, if I want to smooth the boundaries, I can go to Paint Select and then hold down the Shift key to smooth with my brush. In this case, I'll just clear the selection and make another change. Let's go to a side view and see how that looks. Again, all clear. Now, the back of the heel would be a good spot for using the next selection method, and that is sphere. I want to check my selection opacity before I go any further, though. In this case, I want it to be 100%. Click and drag. The second point defines the boundary of the spherical selection. Again, I can smooth it here. And I will hide the gizmo temporarily, and I will use the paint select mode to show that you can combine these. I'll use another draw mode, and I will reduce my selection opacity down to roughly 30%, and I'll just very gently add to this with my brush. I can hold down the Shift key, right click and drag up to increase the smoothing intensity. Alright, now we're going to switch to a legacy gizmo, which can be quite useful in many situations. As you can see, we have these quick alignment tools here, to X, to Y, to Z, and we can flip it if we need. We can adjust the length. Along the stem here, this little widget will change the transform type. This is kind of a global move in screen space. Move along this local axis or the stem. And let's change the transform type. We can rotate in this direction. We can also rotate as we turn. You'll notice it kind of rotates with you. So we can rotate this way or this way. We can also rotate around this stem or this local axis. And this is our pivot point. We can change the direction, so as we pull along a local axis, we can make it pull in this direction. If I want, I can scale it down to kind of flatten it out, which can be good when you're hard surface modeling. But in this case, I want to move. There we go. Let's go ahead and clear our selection again. All right, in the next video, we're going to look at not only the paint select option, but also the select object option as well. And we will look at using the freeform lattice in order to make more intricate transform operations. So stay tuned and we will see you then.